WFMT Loyola University presents Word of Mouth, a monthly series featuring the best lectures and readings recorded by WFMT over more than 3 decades. Today's program features author Truman Capote.
Imagine a morning in late November, a coming of winter morning more than 20 years ago. Consider the kitchen of a spreading old house in a country town. A great black stove is its main feature, but there is also a big round table and a fireplace with 2 rocking chairs placed in front of it. Just today, the fireplace commenced its seasonal roar.
The voice of Truman Capote, recorded in 1956 at Mandel Hall at the University of Chicago. Born Truman Steckfus Persons in New Orleans in 1925, Capote spent his first 9 years with relatives in rural Alabama, after which he was sent to boarding school in Connecticut. At 19, he won an O. Henry Prize for a short story, and when he was 23, he won national attention with his first novel, Other Voices, Other Rooms. The following year, 1949, Random House published a collection of his short stories, A Tree of Night. Numerous other works followed, including The Grass Harp and Breakfast at Tiffany's. A gifted journalist, Capote accompanied the cast of Porgy and Bess on a tour of the Soviet Union in 1956 and detailed the trip in The Muses Are Heard. 10 years later, he published his first nonfiction novel, In Cold Blood, his account of the murder of a Kansas family. Capote died in 1984 at the age of 59, leaving a work in progress entitled Answered Prayers. Speaking of writing, Truman Capote said, "The surprise, the twist, the phrase that comes at the right moment out of nowhere is the unexpected dividend, that joyful little push that keeps a writer going." Today's program, featuring Truman Capote, is the 4th in a series of monthly broadcasts. Loyola University presents Word of Mouth. Loyola University not only reaches out around the Chicago community with branch campuses and its medical center, but it reaches across the sea. 1987 marks the 25th anniversary of Loyola's Rome Center of Liberal Arts. At the center, located 20 minutes from the heart of the Holy City, some 300 students from Loyola and many other institutions enjoy the opportunity to live and study together in one of the most important historical and cultural centers in the world. And Rome Center will be the focus of Loyola University's upcoming commencement exercises on January 10th. Honorary degrees will be awarded to lyric opera's Bruno Bartoletti, Alitalia Chief Executive Officer Umberto Nordio, and Laureate Miller Ruppy, Director of the Peace Corps. Signor Bartoletti will be honored for his musical achievements, Signor Nordio for his success in renewing the health of Italy's national airline, and Ms. Ruppy for her long service in directing the Peace Corps' more than 6,000 volunteers. Celebrating the 25th year of its Rome Center of Liberal Arts, the people at Loyola feel that these 3 honorees strongly exemplify the spirit of the university, of values not just to be learned, but to be lived. And now, here is Truman Capote, as recorded by WFMT in 1958.
I'm going to read a little travel story from a book of mine called Local Color. It's called A Ride Through Spain. Certainly, the train was old. The seats sagged like the jowls of a bulldog. Windows were out, and strips of adhesive held together those that were left. In the corridor, a prowling cat appeared to be hunting mice, and it was not unreasonable to assume his search would be rewarded. Slowly, as though the engine were harnessed to elderly coolies, we crept out of Granada. The southern sky was as white and burning as a desert. There was one cloud, and it drifted like a traveling oasis. We were going to Algeciras, a Spanish seaport facing the coast of Africa. In our compartment, there was a middle-aged Australian wearing a soiled linen suit. He had tobacco-colored teeth, and his fingernails were unsanitary. Presently, he informed us that he was the ship's doctor. It seemed curious there on the dry door plains of Spain to meet someone connected with the sea. Seated next to him there were two women, a mother and daughter. The mother was an overstuffed, dusty woman with sluggish, disapproving eyes and a faint mustache. The focus for her disapproval fluctuated. First she eyed me rather strongly because, as the sunlight fanned brighter, waves of heat blew through the broken windows, and I had removed my jacket, which she considered, perhaps rightly, discourteous. Later on, she took a dislike to the young soldier who also occupied our compartment. The soldier and the woman's not very discreet daughter, a buxom girl with the scrappy features of a prize fighter, seemed to have agreed to flirt. Whenever the wandering cat appeared at our door, the daughter pretended to be frightened, and the soldier would gallantly shoo the cat into the corridor. This byplay gave them frequent opportunity to touch each other. The young soldier was one of many on the train. With their tassel caps set at snappy angles, they hung about in the corridors smoking sweet black cigarettes and laughing confidentially. They seemed to be enjoying themselves, which apparently was wrong of them, for whenever an officer appeared, the soldiers would stare fixedly out the windows, as though enraptured by the landslides of red rock, the olive fields and stern stone mountains. Their officers were dressed for a parade, many ribbons, much brass, and some wore gleaming, improbable swords strapped to their sides. They did not mix with the soldiers, but sat together in a first-class compartment, looking bored and rather like unemployed actors. It was a blessing, I suppose, that something finally happened to give them a chance at rattling their swords. The compartment directly ahead was taken over by one family, a delicate, attenuated, exceptionally elegant man with a mourning ribbon sewn round his sleeve, and, traveling with him, 6 thin, summery girls, presumably his daughters. They were beautiful, the father and his children, all of them, and in the same way. Hair that had a dark shine, lips the color of pimentos, eyes like sherry. The soldiers would glance into their compartment, then look away. It was as if they had seen straight into the sun. Whenever the train stopped, the man's 2 youngest daughters would descend from the carriage and stroll under the shade of parasols. They enjoyed many lengthy promenades, for the train spent the greater part of our journey standing still. No one appeared to be exasperated by this except myself. Several passengers seemed to have friends at every station with whom they could sit around a fountain and gossip long and lazily. One old woman was met by different little groups in a dozen odd towns. Between these encounters, she wept with such abandon that the Australian doctor became alarmed. "Why, no," she said, "there was nothing he could do. It was just that seeing all her relatives made her so happy." At each stop, cyclones of barefooted women and somewhat naked children ran beside the train, sloshing earthen jars of water and furrily squalling, "Agua, agua." For 2 pesetas you could buy a whole basket of dark, runny figs, and there were trays of curious white-coated candy donuts that looked as though they should be eaten by young girls wearing communion dresses. Toward noon, having collected a bottle of wine, a loaf of bread, a sausage, and a cheese, we were prepared for lunch. Our companions in the compartment were hungry too. Packages were produced, wine uncorked, and for a while there was a pleasant, almost graceful festiveness. The soldier shared a pomegranate with a girl. The Australian told an amusing story. The witch-eyed mother pulled a paper-wrapped fish from between her bosoms and ate it with a glum relish. Afterwards, everyone was sleepy. The doctor went so solidly to sleep that a fly meandered undisturbed over his open-mouthed face. Stillness etherized the whole train. In the next compartment, the lovely girls leaned loosely, like 6 exhausted geraniums. Even the cat had ceased to prowl and lay dreaming in the corridor. We had climbed higher. The train moseyed across a plateau of rough yellow wheat, then between the granite walls of deep ravines where wind, moving down from the mountain, quivered in strange thorny trees. It was a landscape for bandits. Earlier in the summer, a young Englishman I know had been motoring through this part of Spain when, on the lonely side of a mountain, his car was surrounded by swarthy scoundrels. They robbed him, then tied him to a tree and tickled his throat with the blade of a knife. I was thinking of this when, without preface, a spatter of bullet fire strafed the dozy silence. It was a machine gun. Bullets rained in the trees like the rattle of castanets, and the train with a wounded creak slowed to a halt. For a moment there was no sound except the machine gun's cough. Then, "Bandits," I said in a loud, dreadful voice. "Bandidos!" screamed the daughter. "Bandidos!" echoed her mother, and the terrible words swept through the train like something drummed on a tom-tom. The result was slapstick in a grim key. We collapsed on the floor, one cringing heap of arms and legs. Only the mother seemed to keep her head. Standing up, she began systematically to stash away her treasures. She stuck a ring into the buns of her hair and, without shame, hiked up her skirts and dropped the pearl-studded comb into her bloomers. Like the cryings of birds at twilight, airy twitterings of distress came from the charming girls in the next compartment. In the corridor, the officers bumped about, yapping orders and knocking into each other. Suddenly, silence. Outside, there was the murmur of wind and leaves, of voices, just as the weight of the doctor's body was beginning to become too much for me. The outer door of our compartment swung open, and a young man stood there. He did not look clever enough to be a bandit. "Hay un medico en el train," he said, smiling. The Australian, removing the pressure of his elbow from my stomach, climbed to his feet. "I'm a doctor," he admitted, dusting himself. "Has someone been wounded?" "Si, senor, an old man. He is hurt in the head," said the Spaniard, who was not a bandit. Alas, merely another passenger. Settling back in our seats, we listened, expressionless with embarrassment, to what had happened. It seemed that for the last several hours an old man had been stealing a ride by clinging to the rear of the train. Just now he had lost his hold, and a soldier, seeing him fall, had started firing a machine gun as a signal for the engineer to stop the train. My only hope was that no one remembered who had first mentioned bandits. They did not seem to. After acquiring a clean shirt of mine, which she intended to use as a bandage, the doctor went off to his patient, and the mother, turning her back with sour prudery, reclaimed her pearl comb. Her daughter and the soldier followed after us as we got out of the carriage and strolled through the trees where many passengers had gathered to discuss the incident. 2 soldiers appeared carrying the old man. My shirt was wrapped around his head. They propped him under a tree, and all the women clustered about, vying with each other to lend him their rosary. Someone brought a bottle of wine, which pleased him more. He seemed quite happy and moaned a great deal. The children who had been on the train circled around him giggling. We were in a small wood that smelled of oranges. There was a path, and it led to a shaded promontory. From here, one looked across a valley where sweeping stretches of scorched golden grass shivered as though the earth were trembling. Admiring the valley and the shadowy changes of light in the hills beyond, the 6 sisters, escorted by their elegant father, sat with their parasols raised above them like guests at a fête champêtre. The soldiers moved around them in a vague, ambitious manner. They did not quite dare to approach, though one brash, sassy fellow went to the edge of the promontory and called, "Yo te quiero mucho." The words returned with the hollow sub-music of a perfect echo, and the sisters, blushing, looked more deeply into the valley. A cloud, somber as the rocky hills, had massed in the sky, and the grass below stirred like the sea before a storm. Someone said he thought it would rain, but no one wanted to go, not the injured man, who was well on his way through a second bottle of wine, nor the children who, having discovered the echo, stood happily caroling into the valley. It was like a party, and we all drifted back to the train as though each of us wished to be the last to leave. The old man, with my shirt like a grand turban on his head, was put into a first-class carriage, and several eager ladies were left to attend him. In our compartment, the dark, dusty mother sat just as we had left her. She had not seen fit to join the party. She gave me a long, glittering look. "Bandido," she said with a surly, unnecessary vigor. The train moved away so slowly, butterflies blew in and out the windows.
You are listening to Truman Capote, reading from his works in a WFMT recording made in 1958, and being brought to you today by Loyola University. Although its official 50th anniversary was just last year, the nursing education arm of Loyola University, now called the Marcella Niehoff School of Nursing, has been active for more than 7 decades. On the occasion of the 50th anniversary, the Niehoff School's dean, Julia Lane, said, "Nursing continues to offer many opportunities, and we will continue to educate practitioners who can manage new technology and changing delivery systems, while at the same time they provide a sense of love and compassion to their patients." Among nursing's continuing opportunities is the chance to continue a nursing education. For registered nurses who are seeking a more responsible position in their calling, or a move into specialized clinical work, the Marcella Niehoff School offers the Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree, which may be attained through either part-time or full-time enrollment. The thousands of graduates of the Marcella Niehoff School of Nursing embody the spirit of Loyola University, of values not just to be learned, but to be lived. And as Dean Lane pledged, we will continue to produce the educated person who nurses. Now, once more, here is Truman Capote with another story.
It's called A Christmas Memory, and it's about a real person. Imagine a morning in late November, a coming of winter morning more than 20 years ago. Consider the kitchen of a spreading old house in a country town. A great black stove is its main feature, but there is also a big round table and a fireplace with 2 rocking chairs placed in front of it. Just today, the fireplace commenced its seasonal roar. A woman with shorn white hair is standing at the kitchen window. She is wearing tennis shoes and a shapeless gray sweater over a summery calico dress. She is small and sprightly, like a bantam hen, but due to a long youthful illness, her shoulders are pitifully hunched. Her face is remarkable, not unlike Lincoln's, craggy like that, and tinted by sun and wind, but it is delicate too, finely boned, and her eyes are brown and timid. "Oh my," she exclaims, her breath smoking the window pane. "It's fruitcake weather." The person to whom she is speaking is myself. I am 7, she is 60-something. We are cousins, very distant ones, and we have lived together, well, as long as I can remember. Other people inhabit the house, relatives, and though they have power over us and frequently make us cry, we are not, on the whole, too much aware of them. We are each other's best friend. She calls me Buddy, in memory of a boy who was formerly her best friend. The other Buddy died in the 1880s when she was still a child. She is still a child. "I knew it before I got out of bed," she says, turning away from the window with a purposeful excitement in her eyes. "The courthouse bell sounded so cold and clear, and there were no birds singing. They've gone to warmer country, yes indeed. Oh, Buddy, stop stuffing biscuit and fetch our buggy. Help me find my hat. We've 30 cakes to bake." It's always the same. A morning arrives in November, and my friend, as though officially inaugurating the Christmas time of year that exhilarates her imagination and fuels the blaze of her heart, announces, "It's fruitcake weather. Fetch our buggy. Help me find my hat." The hat is found, a straw cartwheel corsage with velvet roses out of doors has faded. It once belonged to a more fashionable relative. Together we guide our buggy, a dilapidated baby carriage, out to the garden and into a grove of pecan trees. The buggy is mine. That is, it was bought for me when I was born. It is made of wicker, rather unraveled, and the wheels wobble like a drunkard's legs. But it is a faithful object. Springtimes we take it to the woods and fill it with flowers, herbs, wild fern for our porch pots. In the summer, we pile it with picnic paraphernalia and sugarcane fishing poles and roll it down to the edge of a creek. It has its winter uses, too, as a truck for hauling firewood from the yard to the kitchen, as a warm bed for Queenie, our tough little orange and white rat terrier, who has survived distemper and 2 rattlesnake bites. Queenie is trotting beside it now. 3 hours later, we are back in the kitchen, hulling a heaping buggy load of windfall pecans. Our backs hurt from gathering them. How hard they were to find among the concealing leaves, the frosted, deceiving grass. Crackle! A cheery crunch, scraps of miniature thunder sound as the shells collapse and the golden mound of sweet oily ivory meat mounts in a milk glass bowl. Queenie begs to taste, and now and again my friend sneaks her a mite, though insisting we deprive ourselves. "We mustn't, buddy. If we start, we won't stop, and there's scarcely enough as there is for 30 cakes." The kitchen is growing dark. Dusk turns the window into a mirror. Our reflections mingle with the rising moon as we work by the fireside in the firelight. At last, when the moon is quite high, we toss the final hull into the fire and with joined sighs watch it catch flame. The buggy is empty, the bowl is brim full. We eat our supper, cold biscuits, bacon, blackberry jam, and discuss tomorrow. Tomorrow, the kind of work I like best begins, buying. Cherries and citron, ginger and vanilla, and canned Hawaiian pineapple, rinds and raisins and walnuts and whiskey, and oh, so much flour, butter, so much eggs, flavorings. Why, we'll need a pony to pull the buggy home. But before these purchases can be made, there is the question of money. Neither of us has any. Except for skinflint sums persons in the house occasionally provide, a dime is considered very big money, or what we earn ourselves from various activities, holding rummage sales, selling buckets of hand-picked blackberries, jars of homemade jam and apple jelly and peach preserves, rounding up flowers for funerals and weddings. Once we won 79th prize, $5, in a national football contest. Not that we know a fool thing about football. It's just that we enter any contest we hear about. At the moment, our hopes are centered on the $50,000 grand prize being offered to name a new brand of coffee. We suggested AM, and after some hesitation, for my friend thought it perhaps sacrilegious, the slogan, AM, Amen. To tell the truth, our only really profitable enterprise was the Fun and Freak Museum we conducted in a backyard woodshed 2 summers ago. The fun was a stereopticon with slide views of Washington and New York, lent us by a relative who had been to those places. She was furious when she discovered why we had borrowed it. The freak was a 3-legged bitty chicken hatched by one of our own hens. Everybody hereabouts wanted to see that bitty. We charged grown-ups a nickel, kids 2 cents, and took in a good $20 before the museum shut down due to the decease of the main attraction. But one way and another, we do each year accumulate Christmas savings, a fruitcake fund. These monies we keep hidden in an ancient bead purse, under a loose board, under the floor, under a chamber pot, under my friend's bed. The purse is seldom removed from this safe location except to make a deposit or, as happens every Saturday, a withdrawal. For on Saturdays I am allowed 10 cents to go to the picture show. My friend has never been to a picture show, nor does she intend to. I'd rather hear you tell the story, buddy. That way I can imagine it more. Besides, a person my age shouldn't squander their eyes. When the Lord comes, let me see him clear. In addition to never having seen a movie, she has never eaten in a restaurant, traveled more than 5 miles from home, received or sent a telegram, read anything except funny papers in the Bible, worn cosmetics, cursed, wished someone harm, told a lie on purpose, let a hungry dog go hungry. Here are a few things she has done, does do. Killed with a hoe the biggest rattlesnake ever seen in this county, 16 rattles. Dip snuff secretly. Tame hummingbirds, just try it till they balance on her finger. Tell ghost stories, we both believe in ghosts, so tingling they chill you in July. Talk to herself, take walks in the rain, grow the prettiest japonicas in town, know the recipe for every sort of old-time Indian cure, including a magical wart remover. Now, with supper finished, we retire to the room in a faraway part of the house where my friend sleeps in a scrap quilt-covered iron bed painted rose pink, her favorite color. Silently wallowing in the pleasures of conspiracy, we take the bead purse from its secret place and spill its contents on the scrap quilt. Dollar bills, tightly rolled and green as May buds, somber 50-cent pieces, heavy enough to weight a dead man's eyes, lovely dimes, the liveliest coin, the one that really jingles, nickels and quarters worn smooth as creek pebbles, but mostly a hateful heap of bitter-odored pennies. Last summer, others in the house contracted to pay us a penny for every 25 flies we killed. Oh, the carnage of August. The flies that flew to heaven. Yet it was not work in which we took pride. And as we sit counting pennies, it is as though we were back tabulating dead flies. Neither of us has a head for figures. We count slowly, lose track, start again. According to her calculations, we have $12.73. According to mine, exactly $13. I do hope you're wrong, buddy. We can't mess around with 13. The cakes will fall or put somebody in the cemetery. Why, I wouldn't dream of getting out of bed on the 13th. This is true. She always spends 13th in bed. So, to be on the safe side, we subtract a penny and toss it out the window. Of the ingredients that go into our fruitcakes, whiskey is the most expensive as well as the hardest to obtain. State laws forbid its sale. But everybody knows you can buy a bottle from Mr. Ha-Ha Jones. And the next day, having completed our more prosaic shopping, we set out for Mr. Ha-Ha's business address, a sinful, to quote public opinion, fish fry and dancing cafe down by the river. We've been there before and on the same errand, but in previous years our dealings have been with Ha-Ha's wife, an iodine dark Indian woman with brassy peroxided hair and a dead-tired disposition. Actually, we've never laid eyes on her husband, though we've heard that he's an Indian too, a giant with razor scars across his cheeks. They call him Ha-Ha because he's so gloomy, a man who never laughs. As we approach his cafe, a large log cabin festooned inside and out with chains of garish gay naked light bulbs and standing by the river's muddy edge under the shade of river trees where moss drifts through the branches like gray mist. Our steps slow down. Even Queenie stops prancing and sticks close by. People have been murdered in Ha-Ha's cafe, cut to pieces, hit on the head. There's a case coming up in court next month. Naturally, these goings-on happen at night when the colored lights cast dizzy patterns and the Victrola wails. In the daytime, Ha-Ha's is shabby and deserted. I knock at the door, Queenie barks. My friend calls, "Mrs. Ha-Ha, ma'am, anyone to home?" Footsteps. The door opens. Our hearts overturn. It's Mr. Ha-Ha Jones himself. And he is a giant. He does have scars. He doesn't smile. No, he glowers at us through Tatum-tilted eyes and demands to know what you want with Ha-Ha. For a moment we are too paralyzed to tell. Presently my friend half finds her voice, a whispery voice at best. "If you please, Mr. Ha-Ha, we'd like a quart of your finest whiskey." His eyes tilt more. Would you believe it? Ha-Ha is smiling, laughing too. "Which one of you is a drinking man?" "It's for making fruitcakes, Mr. Ha-Ha, cooking." This sobers him. He frowns. That's no way to waste good whiskey. Nevertheless, he retreats into the shadowed cafe and seconds later appears carrying a bottle of daisy yellow unlabeled liquor. He demonstrates its sparkle in the sunlight and says, $2. We pay him with nickels and dimes and pennies. Suddenly, jangling the coins in his hand like a fistful of dice, his face softens. "Tell you what," he proposes, pouring the money back into our bead purse. "Just send me one of them fruitcakes instead." "Well," my friend remarks on our put an extra cup of raisins in his cake. The black stove, stoked with coal and firewood, glows like a lighted pumpkin. Egg beater swirls, spoons spin round in bowls of butter and sugar, vanilla sweetens the air, ginger spices it, melting, nose-tingling odors saturate the kitchen, suffuse the house, drift out to the world on puffs of chimney smoke. In 4 days our work is done. 31 cakes, dampened with whiskey, bask on windowsills and shelves. Who are they for? Friends. Not necessarily neighbor friends. Indeed, the larger share are intended for persons we've met maybe once, perhaps not at all. People who struck our fancy, like President Roosevelt, like the Reverend and Mrs. J.C. Lucy, Baptist missionaries to Borneo who lectured here last winter, or the little knife grinder who comes through town twice a year, or Abner Packer, the driver of the 6 o'clock bus from Mobile, who exchanges waves with us every day as he passes in a dust cloud whoosh, or the young Wistons, a California couple whose car one afternoon broke down outside the house and who spent a pleasant hour chatting with us on the porch. Young Mr. Wiston snapped our picture, the only one we've ever had taken. Is it because my friend is shy with everyone except strangers that these strangers and merest acquaintances seem to us our truest friends? I think yes. Also, the scrapbooks we keep of thank yous on White House stationery, time-to-time communications from California and Borneo, the knife grinder's penny postcards, make us feel connected to eventful worlds beyond the kitchen with its view of a sky that stops. Now a new December fig branch grates against the window. The kitchen is empty, the cakes are gone. Yesterday we carted the last of them to the post office where the cost of stamps turned our purse inside out. We're broke. That rather depresses me, but my friend insists on celebrating with 2 inches of whiskey left in Ha-Ha's bottle. Queenie has a spoonful in a bowl of coffee. She likes her coffee chicory flavored and strong. The rest we divide between a pair of jelly glasses. We're both quite awed at the prospect of drinking straight whiskey. The taste of it brings screwed up expressions and sour shudders. But by and by we began to sing. The two of us singing different songs simultaneously. I don't know the words to mine, just come on along to the Darktown Strutters Ball. But I can dance. That's what I mean to be, a tap dancer in the movies. My dancing shadow rollicks on the walls. Our voices rock the chinaware. We giggle as if unseen hands were tickling us. Queenie rolls on her back. Her paws plow the air. Something like a grin stretches her black lips. Inside myself, I feel warm and sparky as those crumbling logs, carefree as the wind in the chimney. My friend waltzes round the stove, the hem of her calico skirt pinched between her fingers as though it were a pretty party dress. Show me the way to go home, she sings, her tennis shoes squeaking on the floor. Oh, show me the way to go home. Enter two relatives, very angry, potent with eyes that scold, tongues that scoff. Listen to what they have to say, the words tumbling together into a wrathful tune. A child of 7, whiskey on his breath. Are you out of your mind? Feeding a child of 7? Must be loony. Road to ruination. Remember Cousin Kate, Uncle Charlie, Uncle Charlie's brother-in-law? Shame, scandal, humiliation, kneel. Pray, beg the Lord. Queenie sneaks under the stove. My friend gazes at her shoes. Her chin quivers. She lifts her skirt and blows her nose and runs to her room. Long after the town has gone to sleep and the house is silent except for the chimings of clocks and the sputter of fading fires, she is weeping into a pillow already as wet as a widow's handkerchief. Don't cry, I say, sitting at the bottom of her bed and shivering despite my flannel nightgown that smells of last winter's cough syrup. Don't cry, I beg, teasing her toes, tickling her feet. You're too old for that. It's because, she hiccups, I am too old and funny. Not funny, fun, more fun than anybody. Listen, if you don't stop crying, you'll be so tired tomorrow we can't go cut a tree. She straightens up. Queenie jumps on the bed, where Queenie is not allowed to lick her cheeks. I know where we'll find real pretty trees, buddy, and holly too, with berries big as your eyes. It's way off in the woods, farther than we've ever been. Papa used to bring us Christmas trees from there, carry them on his shoulder. That's 50 years ago. Well now, I can't wait for morning. Morning. Frozen rime lusters the grass. The sun, round as an orange, and orange as hot weather moons, balances on the horizon, burnishes the silvered winter woods. A wild turkey calls. A renegade hog grunts in the undergrowth. Soon, by the edge of knee-deep, rapid-running water, we have to abandon the buggy. Queenie wades the stream first, paddles across, barking complaints at the swiftness of the current, the pneumonia-making coldness of it. We follow, holding our shoes and equipment, a hatchet, a burlap sack over our heads. A mile more of chastising thorns, burrs, and briars that catch at our clothes, of rusty pine needles brilliant with gaudy fungus and molted feathers. Here, there, a flash, a flutter, an ecstasy of shrillings reminds us that not all the birds have flown south. Always the path unwinds through lemony sun pools and pitch-vine tunnels. Another creek to cross, a disturbed armada of speckled trout frosts the water round us, and frogs the size of plates practice belly flops. On the farther shore, Queenie shakes herself and trembles. My friend shivers too, not with cold, but enthusiasm. One of her hat's ragged roses sheds a petal as she lifts her head and inhales the pine-heavy air. We're almost there. Can you smell it, buddy? She says, as though we were approaching an ocean. And indeed it is a kind of ocean. Centered acres of holiday trees, prickly-leafed holly, red berries shiny as Chinese bells, black crows swoop upon them screaming. Having stuffed our burlap sacks with enough greenery and crimson to garland a dozen windows, we set about choosing a tree. It should be, muses my friend, twice as tall as a boy, so a boy can't steal the star. The one we pick is twice as tall as me, a brave, handsome brute that survives 30 hatchet strokes before it kneels with a creaking, rending cry. Lugging it like a kill, we commence the long trek out. Every few yards we abandon the struggle, sit down and pant. But we have the strength of triumphant huntsmen. That and the tree's virile, icy perfume revive us, goad us on. Many compliments accompany our sunset return along the red clay road to town. But my friend is sly and non-committal when passers-by praise the treasure perched in our buggy. What a fine tree, and where did it come from? Yonder ways, she murmurs vaguely. Once a car stops and the rich mill owner's lazy wife leans out and whines, "Give you 2 bits for that old tree." Ordinarily, my friend is afraid of saying no, but on this occasion she promptly shakes her head. "We wouldn't take $1. The mill owner's wife persists. $1 my foot. 50 cents, that's my last offer. Goodness, woman, you can get another one. In answer, my friend gently reflects, "I doubt it. There's never 2 of anything." Home, Queenie slumps by the fire and sleeps till tomorrow, snoring loud as a human. A trunk in the attic contains a shoebox of ermine tails, off the opera cape of a curious lady who once rented a room in the house. Coils of frazzled tinsel gone gold with age, 1 silver star, a brief rope of dilapidated, undoubtedly dangerous, candy-like light bulbs. Excellent decorations as far as they go, which isn't far enough. My friend wants our tree to blaze like a Baptist window, droop with weighty snows of ornament. But we can't afford the made-in-Japan splendors at the 5 and dime, so we do what we've always done, sit for days at the kitchen table with scissors and crayons and stacks of colored paper. I make sketches and my friend cuts them out. Lots of cats, fish too, because they're easy to draw, some apples, some watermelons, a few winged angels devised from saved-up sheets of Hershey bar tinfoil. We use safety pins to attach these creations to the tree, and as a final touch, we sprinkle the branches with shredded cotton. My friend, surveying the effect, clasps her hands together. "Now, honest, buddy, doesn't it look good enough to eat?" Queenie tries to eat an angel. After weaving and ribboning holly wreaths for all the front windows, our next project is the fashioning of family gifts. Tie-dye scarves for the ladies. For the men, a home-brewed lemon and licorice and aspirin syrup to be taken at the first symptoms of a cold and after hunting. But when it comes time for making each other's gift, my friend and I separate to work secretly. I would like to buy her a pearl-handled knife, a radio, a whole pound of chocolate-covered cherries. We tasted some once, and she always swears, "I could live on them, buddy. Lord, yes, I could. And that's not taking his name in vain." Instead, I am building her a kite. She would like to give me a bicycle. She said so on several million occasions. If only I could, buddy. It's bad enough in life to do without something you want. But confound it, what gets my goat is not being able to give somebody something you want them to have. Only one of these days I will, buddy, locate you a bite. Don't ask me how, steal it maybe. Instead, I'm fairly certain that she is building me a kite. The same as last year and the year before. The year before that, we exchanged slingshots. All of which is fine by me, for we are champion kite flyers who study the wind like sailors. My friend, more accomplished than I, can get a kite aloft when there isn't enough breeze to carry clouds. Christmas Eve afternoon, we scrape together a nickel and go to the butcher's to buy Queenie's traditional gift, a good, gnawable beef bone. The bone, wrapped in funny paper, is placed high in the tree near the silver star. Queenie knows it's there. She squats at the foot of the tree, staring up in a trance of greed. When bedtime arrives, she refuses to budge. Her excitement is equaled by my own. I kick the covers and turn my pillow as though it were a scorching summer's night. Somewhere a rooster crows, falsely, for the sun is still on the other side of the world. Buddy, are you awake? It is my friend calling from her room, which is next to mine. And an instant later, she is sitting on my bed, holding a candle. Well, I can't sleep a hoot, she declares. My mind's jumping like a jackrabbit. Buddy, do you think Mrs. Roosevelt will serve our cake at dinner? We huddle in the bed, and she squeezes my hand. I love you. Seems like your hand used to be so much smaller. I guess I hate to see you grow up. When you're grown up, will we still be friends? I say always, but I feel so bad, buddy. I wanted so bad to give you a bite. I tried to sell my cameo Papa gave me. Buddy, she hesitates as though embarrassed. I made you another kite. Then I confess that I made her one too, and we laugh. The candle burns too short to hold. Out it goes, exposing the starlight, the stars spinning at the window like a visible caroling that slowly, slowly daybreak silences. Possibly we doze, but the beginning of dawn splashes us like cold water. We're up, wide-eyed and wandering, while we wait for others to waken. Quite deliberately, my friend drops a kettle on the kitchen floor. I tap dance in front of closed doors. One by one, the household emerges, looking as though they'd like to kill us both. But it's Christmas, so they can't. First, a gorgeous breakfast, just everything you can imagine, from flapjacks and fried squirrel to hominy grits and honey in the comb, which puts everyone in a good humor except my friend and I. Frankly, we're so impatient to get at the presents we can't eat a mouthful. Well, I'm disappointed. Who wouldn't be? With socks, a Sunday school shirt, some handkerchiefs, a hand-me-down sweater, and a year's subscription to a religious magazine for children, The Little Shepherd. It makes me boil, it really does. My friend has a better haul, a sack of satsumas. That's her best present. She is proudest, however, of a white wool shawl knitted by her married sister. But she says her favorite gift is the kite I built her. And it is very beautiful, though not as beautiful as the one she made me, which is blue and scattered with gold and green good conduct stars. Moreover, my name is painted on it, Buddy. Buddy, the wind is blowing. The wind is blowing, and nothing will do till we've run to a pasture below the house where Queenie has scooted to bury her bone, and where, a winter hence, Queenie will be buried too. There, plunging through the healthy, waist-high grass, we unreel our kites, feel them twitching at the string like skyfish as they swim into the wind. Satisfied, sun-warmed, we sprawl in the grass and peel satsumas and watch our kites cavort. Soon I forget the socks and hand-me-down sweater. I'm as happy as if we had already won the $50,000 grand prize in that coffee naming contest. My, how foolish I am! My friend cries, suddenly alert, like a woman remembering too late she has biscuits in the oven. You know what I've always thought? She asked in a tone of discovery, and not smiling at me, but a point beyond. I've always thought a body would have to be sick and dying before they saw the Lord. And I imagine that when he came, it would be like looking at the Baptist window, pretty as colored glass with the sun pouring through. Such a shine you don't know it's getting dark. And it's been a comfort to think of that shine taking away all the spooky feeling. But I'll wager it never happens. I'll wager at the very end, a body realizes the Lord has already shown himself, that things as they are Her hand circles in a gesture that gathers clouds and kites and grass and Queenie pawing earth over her bone. Just what they've always seen was seeing him. As for me, I could leave the world today with today in my eyes. This is our last Christmas together. Life separates us. Those who know best decide that I belong in a military school, and so follows a miserable succession of bugle-blowing prisons, grim, reveille-ridden summer camps. I have a new home, too, but it doesn't count. Home is where my friend is, and there I never go, and there she remains, puttering around the kitchen, alone with Queenie, then alone. Buddy dear, she writes in her wild, hard-to-read script, yesterday Jim Macy's horse kicked Queenie bad. Be thankful she didn't feel much. I wrapped her in a fine linen sheet and rode her in the buggy down to Simpson pasture, where she can be with all her bones. For a few Novembers, she continues to bake her fruitcakes single-handed. Not as many, but some. And, of course, she always sends me the best of the batch. Also, in every letter, she encloses a dime wadded in toilet paper. See a picture show and write me the story. But gradually, in her letters, she tends to confuse me with her other friend, the buddy who died in the 1880s. More and more, 13ths are not the only days she stays in bed. A morning arrives in November, a leafless, birdless coming of winter morning, when she cannot rouse herself to exclaim, "Oh my, it's fruitcake weather." And when that happens, I know it. A message saying so merely confirms a piece of news some secret vein had already received, severing from me an irreplaceable part of myself, letting it loose like a kite on a broken string. That is why, walking across the school campus on this particular December morning, I keep searching the sky, as if I expected to see, rather like hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven.
You've been listening to Truman Capote reading his A Christmas Memory, as recorded by WFMT in 1958 at Mandel Hall at the University of Chicago, in the fourth of a monthly series entitled Word of Mouth, and brought to you on WFMT by Loyola University. With its strong scholarly tradition, an institution such as Loyola University would hardly advocate anything such as streamlined education, but speed and efficiency in other matters is greatly to be desired. Take the upcoming spring registration for Loyola's University College for courses in arts and sciences, business administration, and education. With a minimum of paperwork, students may enroll for part-time study in a process that takes normally no more than an hour. That's the kind of streamlining anyone can appreciate. Qualified applicants may sign up for part-time study at one of University College's half-dozen Chicago and suburban campuses. And this spring registration could be of special interest to Chicago area students who may in some way or other be less than satisfied with their current college arrangement. They need only be in good standing at their present college, and they may enroll for up to 11 credit hours. Registration takes place from 2 to 6:30 p.m., January 5th and 7th, in the Georgetown Room of Marquette Center on Loyola University's Water Tower campus, Rush and Pearson in Chicago. For more information, phone University College at 670-3011. We have presented Truman Capote. This month's edition of Loyola University presents Word of Mouth, a series featuring the best lectures and readings recorded by WFMT over more than 3 decades. You're invited to listen once more on Saturday, January 17th at 4:30 to hear conductor Sir Thomas Beecham talk about Handel, one of his favorite subjects, on Loyola University presents Word of Mouth. Word of Mouth is produced by Lois Baum and George Drury.